Greetings. I'm Dave Steckel, and I'm reading from my book, Big Dave's 5 Minute Stories, which is, we've just been going through these little 5 minute reads. This one's actually a little bit longer than 5 minutes. Uh, but I belong to the Sequim Writers Group, and I went ahead and every month we have readings. And over the last few years, I've been doing some readings for them for these get togethers. And they said, the director, Heidi, said, Dave, you ever thought about putting these in a book? And I said, no, not really. So I've collected them into my book, Big Dave's 5 Minute Stories. And there's a link down below if you want to get a copy here. So this one's called Crazy Navy Days. So this says, this is a bit longer than the 5 minute readings. Heidi Hansen invited me to share a 10 minute reading at the Blue Hole Gallery in Sequim, Washington, where I live. Typically at the gallery, we did ekphrastic readings. There's a word you don't hear every day, ekphrastic, inspired by the artwork of the gallery. For whatever reason, these readings ignored all of the fine artwork all around us in this small art establishment. These true stories were just anxiously waiting in my brain to be released into a printed account. So it's called Crazy Navy Days. I spent a few of my precious youthful years in the service of the United States Navy. Please do not be impressed. I was in no way a model sailor. Just the opposite. I passionately rued my enlistment. I kicked and hollered and rebelled almost every moment under Uncle Sam's thumb. I reveled in the dream of the day when my enlistment would end. Most of my disgruntled military peers expressed their disfavor by using illegal drugs. I was not of that vent. Nonetheless, many assigned to my submarine, both officers and enlisted, believed I was the biggest head on board. One druggie newly assigned to our boat sought out his fellow druggies. We had just had a shipwide drug bust, so none would fess up. He bided his time and observed which of us were surely the biggest potheads. For reasons I only vaguely understand to this day, he decided I was that man. He invited me for a weekend away trip to Redding, California, his hometown. He brought out the weed, and, to his astonishment, I declined. I have never liked being inebriated. Nope, my rebellions came in other, more imaginative ways, which I wish to share with you today. Initially, while enlisted, I built a civilian life totally apart from the Navy. I made friends from my church. They were my focus, but that did not help for the many hours I had to endure naval tomfoolery. Keep in mind, I was a 6'7" kid in a submarine, a ship designed for someone no taller than 6'3". The ceilings and bunks were 6'3". I had to walk around like Groucho Marx, bending my legs rather than bend over to avoid straining my lower back. But I was young and immortal then. I could get down the corridors and through the watertight doors just as quickly as anyone. Maybe I should not have been on a sub, but our executive officer was actually an inch taller than I. I worked under a first-class petty officer named Orukan. He was Filipino. We did not get along. Please note, I got along fine with all of my other Filipino shipmates. Chief Tayag, the chief petty officer both Arukan and I worked under, was Filipino. I liked him and respected his position, but for whatever reasons, Arukan and I endured perpetual friction. So how did I, a 19-year-old, a 19-year-old spoiled snot, respond to my immediate superior? I used big words. Words Arukan would not understand. Now, mind you, I used nice words. I wasn't being directly insubordinate. I told him he was being industrious, or amicable, or auspicious. Arukan would often say, "Don't use big words." I would agree, and even apologize while I considered what other big words I could say that would piss him off. I also got to act indignant for his ignorance, defining those big words about how he worked hard or how he was friendly or how he tended to bring good luck. The truth be told, I was being an insensitive jerk. I wouldn't face captain's mast for insubordination, but I was still a jerk all the same. Now, the real reason I wanted to share the missed foibles of my Navy days all culminates into this, the biggest feather in my sailor's ball cap. After work one day, I was dining at Sambo's in Vallejo, California with friends, Jim Rosevere and Dave Braun. Braun was 18 years old, in his first year in the Navy, and recently assigned to the USS John Marshall, our submarine. He'd grown his first beard. Though a ginger, he'd grown a full and decent beard, not straggly or unkempt at all, like so many young men. That day, the powers that be had ordered him to shave his beard. Over dinner that night, Braun expressed sadness having to shave. After a spell, I came up with an idea. I said, "What if I buy your beard?" Braun and Jim both looked at me, totally puzzled. "Yeah," I added, "I'll buy your beard. We'll keep it on your face, but it will be my beard." They thought I was crazy, but as we discussed the plan further, Dave Braun agreed. The next day, we typed up an agreement. I literally paid him $30 for his beard, which is a bit of money in 1976, 75. We even had the agreement notarized. I wish I still had that. The next workday, Braun showed up, still hairy. The chief said, "Braun, shave your beard." And Braun answered, "It's not my beard. It's Steckel's beard." What? I wish I'd been there to see their reaction when he told them that. "Shave your beard," was all they said. The next day, Braun came to work, still not shorn. "Braun, shave your beard." "It's not my beard. It's Steckel's beard." That's when they asked how it was my beard. He told them that I had bought it. Now, you probably can guess what the Navy staff would have thought of that idea. As things went, the chief or lieutenant did not summon me. Instead, they sent two of the third-class petty officers to talk to me. They came down totally awkward and asked, "We heard something about you own Braun's beard." "Yep," I cheerfully answered, probably giggling. "I bought it." "For how much?" $30. Given the following silence, I offered to show them the bill of sale. They both read over it, incredulous. It described the specific region of hair that I owned, including the mustache, still planted on his face. We both signed, and Jim signed as a witness, notary seal at the bottom. They awkwardly said I could not do that. Not that they knew a thing about the legality of buying beards any more than moi. As they departed, I yelled from the quarterdeck about validity of contractual commitments, and they could take it before the court or some other such nonsense, reciting things I'd read in a Robert A. Heinlein novel. Nothing more was said to me about the transaction. A few days later, Braun came to work, clean shaven. The Navy way is to push until you fold. He looked all puppy dog beat, concerned I'd be mad at him. I readily shrugged it off. When one bucks Uncle Sam's hierarchy, he has to be willing to dig in deep or get bowled over. I was of that vent far more than Dave Braun. He didn't even bring me his beard shavings encased in a baggie. Believe that? I never expected to make a big splash with my silly rebellions aboard the USS John Marshall SSBN 611, but it made for a more colorful week for all of us. As I mentioned, I greatly disliked my days in the Navy at the time. Today, a bit more mature, hopefully, at least in theory, I honestly treasure those days much more. Still, if any of you have any growing hair you want to sell, I still may be in the market. I have a couple other tales of rebellion aboard the USS John Marshall. I was assigned to the boat. Submarines were called boats, not ships in the US Navy. I don't know why. The assignment aboard that boat ran from May of 1975 to fall of 1976, when I checked myself out of my enlistment in the Navy. I told you I was not a model sailor. Submarine Qualification School was then held in Groton, Connecticut. They had a submarine base there as well, The first nuclear-powered submarine, the Nautilus, was retired there. Well, not really retired. They lopped off the top of the boat, called the sail, and made it a monument outside of the subbase. I completed sub school in April of 1974. I had bought a car, a brown 1968 VW Bug, and intended to drive to my next duty station. As it turned out, they sent me to Mare Island Naval Shipyard in Vallejo, California, to spend about a year and a half assigned to the John Marshall as it was being refitted. When one drives to their next duty station, they are given extra days to travel. I could cross the country in literally less than 3 days. Such was my ability to drive long distances. Even now, I'm still something of a driveaholic. The Navy gave me 10 days to cross the country to get to Vallejo. Likewise, without asking for it, they also gave me a 2 weeks leave. That is vacation, something I definitely did not want to take. They only gave us like a week or a year or something of official leave, so I would not have earned enough leave time to go home for the next couple of years. A very pleasant yeoman who I chatted with at times wrote up my orders for Mare Island. They always gave us this stack of papers when we went to a different duty station. The specific orders were right on top. I saw that I had been given 24 days to get to California, 10 days travel time and 2 weeks leave. I planned to reach California on the 10th day. Then, after I left Connecticut, something in my orders caught my eye. The yeoman mistyped the year I was to report for duty. I didn't have 24 days to travel. I had 1 year and 24 days to travel. I already knew that I did not like the Navy, but at that time I still felt a sense of responsibility to do the right thing and just show up 10 days later. What makes this account even more interesting is that, unknown to me before I arrived, the supply officer I'd been assigned to shared that they knew someone had been assigned to them, but they were still surprised when someone actually showed up. It was unusual to assign people to boats being overhauled until they were closer to being finished. In turn, could I have been on my own for a very long time before anyone noticed I was missing? Similarly, if I did show up 1 year and 24 days later, I might have pissed off some people, but my orders were clear until rescinded. Certainly a stern talking to, but it's virtually nothing illegal that the Navy could charge me with. The U.S. Navy still would have been compelled to pay me all of that back pay. As you well know, back pay is not the same. As you know, back pay is not the same as back pay. Before I joined, I was a vagabond. Excuse me. Before I joined, I was a vagabond hitchhiker. Living homeless was not a stranger to my life. Still, I made the 10-day journey and arrived at the next duty station well before the year and 24 days, using only travel time instead of vacation time. Another year down the road, I cannot swear that I would have I cannot swear that I would have been that considerate. So now jump ahead a year and a half. I've been living in Vallejo playing sailor. The John Marshall was almost done with its refit. I went topside to the front of the boat one sunny day. They had totally repainted the outside of the boat, jet black. I saw a young shipyard worker wandering around the decks with a quart-sized can of black paint and a paintbrush. He had been assigned the task of touching up any spots where the earlier paint job had missed or already chipped off. His focus was far from anything inspiring. I called him over and asked if I could borrow his paint and brush. I wanted to paint something on the side of the John Marshall. He agreed, and to be honest, I doubt he cared even a little bit. So I took his paint and brush. I climbed over a rope fence around the boat to help keep people from falling off onto the very front of the boat, forward of the torpedo room hatch. And there, painting black on black with this thick, gooey paint, I painted a caricature of Fred Flintstone. I had learned to draw Fred and Barney quite some years earlier when I was in the hospital. I can still draw both cartoons to this day, though I have very little reason to do so nowadays. So when we pulled out to sea, The barely discernible image of Fred Flintstone adorned the front of the USS John Marshall, SSBN 611. So those are some of my silly whatevers in the Navy. I can't say I'm proud of them today, but they do make a fun tale to tell. So I'm reading from my book, Big Dave's 5-Minute Stories. Again, there's a link down below if you'd like to get a copy. And God bless you, and thank you for listening in.